World War II produced entire armies of decorated soldiers, but only a handful of individuals came to symbolize the extreme limits of human endurance and courage in modern industrial warfare. Among them stands one American infantryman whose combat record remains unmatched. Audie Murphy entered the war as an underweight teenager from rural Texas. He left it as the most decorated American combat soldier of the conflict. His story unfolds not as a single dramatic episode, but as a series of increasingly violent engagements across Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany. Murphy fought in some of the most grueling infantry battles of the Western Front, often against numerically superior German forces and frequently while wounded. His actions earned him every major U.S. Army combat award for valor, including the Medal of Honor. But Murphy's rise was not inevitable. It was shaped by manpower shortages, brutal frontline attrition, and the U.S. Army's rapid expansion during the war, conditions that placed young officers in positions of extraordinary responsibility under fire. Audie Murphy is born on June 20, 1924 in Kingston, Texas, during the final years of the Great Depression. He grows up in extreme poverty, one of 12 children in a sharecropping family. His father abandons the family early, and his mother dies when Murphy is just 16 years old. By that time, he is already responsible for supporting younger siblings through farm labor and hunting game for food. These early years shape both Murphy's physical toughness and his familiarity with firearms. He becomes an exceptional marksman, not through formal training, but through necessity. Hunting is survival, not recreation. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, Murphy attempts to enlist in the U.S. military. He is repeatedly rejected by the Army, Navy, and Marines for being underage, underweight, and physically slight. Only in June 1942, shortly after turning 18, is he finally accepted into the U.S. Army after falsifying his age with help from his sister. Murphy completes basic training and is assigned to the infantry, at the time the branch suffering the highest casualty rates. In early 1943, he is shipped overseas, joining the 15th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division. This unit will participate in nearly every major Allied campaign in the Mediterranean and Western Europe. At this stage, Murphy is an anonymous private in a rapidly expanding army. Within 2 years, that will change completely. Audie Murphy's first experience of combat comes not in France, but in the Mediterranean. In July 1943, the 3rd Infantry Division lands in Sicily as part of Operation Husky, the Allied invasion aimed at removing Italy from the war and opening a southern front against Axis forces. The campaign immediately exposes American infantry units to the realities of modern warfare. German and Italian troops fight a disciplined delaying action across mountainous terrain, using narrow roads, stone villages, and prepared defensive positions to slow the Allied advance. For newly arrived soldiers like Murphy, combat is chaotic, exhausting, and lethal. During the Sicilian fighting, Murphy distinguishes himself not through dramatic heroics, but through consistency under fire. He repeatedly volunteers for patrols, scouts enemy positions, and delivers accurate rifle fire during engagements. His marksmanship and calm behavior under pressure draw the attention of his superiors. By the end of the campaign, he is promoted to corporal. Following Sicily, the 3rd Infantry Division lands on the Italian mainland in September 1943. Here, the fighting becomes even more punishing. German forces conduct a stubborn retreat northward, using rivers, ridgelines, and fortified towns to bleed the advancing Allies. Infantry combat often devolves into close-range firefights, grenade duels, and night patrols. Murphy is wounded for the first time in Italy, struck by shrapnel during an engagement. He refuses evacuation and returns to his unit after treatment. This decision sets a pattern that will repeat throughout the war. By late 1943, Murphy is promoted again, this time to sergeant. He has survived his introduction to combat, gained leadership responsibility, and demonstrated a willingness to fight from the front. The Italian campaign has hardened him, but far more severe tests lie ahead in France. In January 1944, Audie Murphy and the 3rd Infantry Division take part in Operation Shingle, the Allied amphibious landing at Anzio, south of Rome. The operation is intended to break the stalemate of the Italian campaign by landing behind German defensive lines. Instead, it turns into one of the most dangerous and prolonged battles faced by American infantry in the Mediterranean. German forces quickly contain the beachhead, surrounding it with artillery, mortars, and armored units. For months, the fighting at Anzio becomes a brutal war of attrition. Shelling is constant. Movement above ground during daylight is often suicidal. Casualties mount steadily. Murphy, now a platoon sergeant, leads patrols into no man's land, frequently under heavy fire. His responsibilities expand rapidly as officers and non-commissioned leaders are killed or wounded. In several engagements, Murphy assumes command of units after their leaders fall, coordinating defensive fire and evacuating wounded men under artillery bombardment. During one action, Murphy single-handedly destroys a German machine gun position that has pinned down his platoon, advancing under fire and eliminating the crew at close range. For this action, he receives the Bronze Star with V device for valor. The psychological strain of Anzio is immense. Men live in foxholes for weeks at a time, soaked by rain and threatened by constant shell fire. Murphy is wounded again, this time more seriously, but once again returns to duty as soon as possible. By the time the Anzio breakout finally occurs in May 1944, Murphy has become one of the most experienced combat leaders in his regiment. He is promoted to 2nd lieutenant in the field, a rare advancement for someone who entered the army less than 2 years earlier. Italy has tested Murphy's endurance and leadership. France will test the limits of individual heroism. In August 1944, Allied forces launch Operation Dragoon, the invasion of southern France. The objective is to secure ports, cut German supply lines, and support the main Allied advance moving east from Normandy. Audie Murphy, now a 2nd lieutenant, lands with the 3rd Infantry Division on the Mediterranean coast near Saint-Tropez. Unlike Italy, the initial landings face limited resistance. But as American units push inland toward the Vosges Mountains, German forces regroup and begin fighting a determined delaying campaign. The terrain changes quickly. Rolling countryside gives way to dense forests, narrow valleys, and fortified villages ideally suited for defense. Murphy commands an infantry platoon operating at the forward edge of the advance. German rearguard units use ambushes, mines, and concealed machine gun positions to slow American movement. Leadership at the small unit level becomes critical, and casualties among junior officers are high. In one engagement near Montélimar, Murphy leads an assault against a German-held position that has stalled his company's advance. Advancing under machine gun fire, he eliminates multiple enemy positions and directs his men forward, breaking the defense. For this action, he receives the Silver Star. Only weeks later, Murphy repeats this pattern during fighting in the Vosges. When his platoon is pinned down by enemy fire, he advances alone to neutralize a German machine gun nest, killing or capturing its crew. Once again, he refuses evacuation despite being wounded. By autumn 1944, Murphy has become known within his regiment for a distinctive command style. He leads from the front, reacts rapidly under fire, and consistently assumes responsibility beyond his rank. However, the tempo of combat is accelerating, and German resistance is stiffening as Allied forces approach the German border. The most defining action of Murphy's career is still ahead. By January 1945, Allied forces have entered northeastern France near the German border. The fighting now takes place in freezing temperatures, with snow-covered fields and forests limiting visibility and movement. German units, though weakened, continue to launch localized counterattacks to slow the Allied advance. On January 26th, near the village of Holzwihr, 2nd Lieutenant Audie Murphy commands Company B of the 15th Infantry Regiment after its commander is wounded. The company is positioned on flat, open ground bordered by woods, terrain that offers little protection against armor. That morning, German forces launch a counterattack supported by 6 tanks and waves of infantry. Murphy orders his men to withdraw to the edge of the woods while he remains behind to direct artillery fire. During the engagement, an American tank destroyer is hit and disabled, bursting into flames. With German infantry advancing to within close range and his ammunition nearly exhausted, Murphy climbs onto the burning tank destroyer. Using its mounted .50 caliber machine gun, he opens fire on the advancing German troops. Despite the vehicle being on fire and at risk of exploding, Murphy continues firing for nearly an hour, repeatedly calling in artillery strikes by telephone. He is wounded in the leg during the action, but refuses to leave his position. His fire breaks the German assault, killing or wounding dozens of enemy soldiers and forcing the tanks to withdraw. Only after the attack collapses does Murphy rejoin his men and organize a counterattack that retakes the original position. For this action, Audie Murphy is awarded the Medal of Honor. He is 19 years old. Following the action at Holzwihr, Audie Murphy remains in combat, despite his wounds. By this stage of the war, the 3rd Infantry Division is pushing eastward toward the German border, as Allied forces prepare to cross the Rhine and enter the heart of Germany. Resistance varies from collapsing rearguard units to sudden, violent counterattacks by experienced German formations. Murphy continues to lead from the front during these final operations. In multiple engagements, he directs attacks against entrenched enemy positions, often exposing himself to fire in order to maintain momentum. He is wounded again by artillery fragments, but once more refuses evacuation until his unit is secure. In March 1945, Murphy participates in operations inside Germany itself. The psychological atmosphere has changed noticeably. German units are increasingly short of fuel, ammunition, and trained manpower. Prisoners report confusion and exhaustion, while civilian areas show signs of collapse. Still, the fighting remains dangerous, especially in towns and forests where ambushes are common. By the time Germany surrenders in May 1945, Murphy has been wounded 3 times and promoted to 1st lieutenant. His service record is extraordinary. He has received the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, 2 Bronze Stars with V device, 3 Purple Hearts, and the Legion of Merit, along with numerous campaign and foreign awards from France and Belgium. At just 20 years old, Audie Murphy has become the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II. His wartime service ends not with a single defining moment, but with a cumulative record of sustained frontline leadership under extreme conditions. Audie Murphy's extraordinary combat record did not occur in a vacuum. His personal courage was essential, but it was combined with several broader factors unique to the American and European theaters in 1943 to 1945. First, infantry attrition played a critical role. The U.S. Army expanded rapidly, and casualties among junior officers were high. This meant that motivated and capable soldiers like Murphy were often thrust into leadership positions far earlier than peacetime norms would allow. Field promotions rewarded effectiveness under fire, not tenure. Second, the nature of the terrain and operations amplified opportunities for individual heroism. The Italian mountains, the forests of France, and the snowbound fields of northeastern France forced units into small-scale engagements. Platoon and company leaders were often isolated, requiring rapid decision-making and personal initiative. Third, German defensive tactics, especially delaying actions and fortified positions, created concentrated points of resistance. Soldiers who could act decisively at these choke points had disproportionate effects on the battlefield. Murphy repeatedly demonstrated an ability to identify and neutralize such threats. Finally, Murphy's personal attributes, marksmanship, endurance, and psychological resilience, were amplified by these structural conditions. He combined physical skill with an intuitive understanding of small unit tactics. His repeated choice to remain in the most dangerous positions, often wounded, maximized the impact of his actions on both enemy forces and his fellow soldiers. After the war, Audie Murphy returns to the United States as a national hero. Newspapers and newsreels highlight his extraordinary record, describing him as the most decorated American soldier of World War II. His awards and battlefield exploits make him a symbol of courage and perseverance, especially for a generation that had endured the hardships of the Great Depression and global conflict. Murphy's transition to civilian life is not easy. Despite fame and financial opportunities, he struggles with post-traumatic stress, a condition poorly understood at the time. He experiences recurring nightmares, insomnia, and anxiety, symptoms common among veterans who have faced sustained combat. To support himself, Murphy pursues a career in Hollywood. He acts in more than 40 films, often portraying soldiers or historical figures, and even writes a memoir titled To Hell and Back, detailing his wartime experiences. The book becomes a bestseller and is adapted into a highly successful film in which Murphy plays himself. Even outside of combat, Murphy's discipline and leadership leave an impression. He frequently participates in speaking engagements, supports veterans organizations, and advocates for recognition of frontline infantrymen. His legacy extends beyond awards. It embodies the courage, endurance, and moral responsibility required of soldiers in modern, industrialized warfare. Audie Murphy's story remains a powerful lens through which to examine the human dimension of World War II. Historians often highlight his career not only for the sheer number of decorations, but for what it reveals about small unit leadership, the psychological demands of sustained combat, and the extraordinary responsibilities placed on young officers. Murphy's heroism illustrates the intense pressure on frontline soldiers in modern industrial warfare. While strategy, logistics, and air power determined the outcomes of campaigns, individual initiative often shaped the success or survival of small units in combat. His actions at Holtzwihr exemplify how a single determined leader can influence the outcome of an engagement, buying time for reinforcements and saving lives. Beyond battlefield tactics, Murphy's legacy touches on the human costs of war. His struggles with post-traumatic stress, despite national acclaim, underscore the invisible burdens carried by soldiers even after the fighting ends. His life invites reflection on how societies honor courage while supporting the long-term well-being of veterans. Audie Murphy's narrative also resonates culturally. Films, books, and interviews perpetuate his legend, portraying him as the archetype of youthful bravery, moral clarity, and relentless determination. Yet historians remind us that his story is also one of luck, circumstance, and the harsh realities faced by all infantrymen in the European theater. Ultimately, Murphy's life bridges history and memory. He exemplifies individual heroism within collective struggle and serves as a reminder of the resilience and sacrifices required in war. His achievements, both recognized and unrecorded, ensure that the most decorated American soldier of World War II remains a symbol of courage under fire. Audie Murphy's life story is remarkable not only for the number of decorations he received, but for the extraordinary consistency of his courage under fire. From the hills of Sicily to the forests of France, he repeatedly demonstrated an unwavering commitment to his men, a willingness to face danger head-on, and an ability to act decisively in situations where hesitation could mean death. His experiences underscore the complex realities of infantry warfare. Heroism is rarely the result of a single moment. It is often forged through sustained pressure, repeated risk, and the moral choice to continue leading when others falter. Murphy exemplified this daily, transforming fear into action and inspiring those around him to survive and fight. Post-war, Murphy's legacy transcended battlefield exploits. His openness about personal struggles, his contributions to veterans' causes, and his cultural impact through film and literature expanded the understanding of what it means to be a soldier and a survivor. He reminds us that bravery is multifaceted, comprising not only physical courage, but mental resilience, moral fortitude, and the capacity to endure beyond the battlefield. In examining Audie Murphy's life, historians, veterans, and civilians alike gain insight into the human dimension of war, the pressures on young leaders, and the profound sacrifices required in service. He remains a lasting symbol of American courage, a testament to the extraordinary feats possible when ordinary individuals rise to meet extraordinary challenges.